We all know those folks that have been, listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast for 3 years or going to all the meetups, and they're going to take action tomorrow. They're always going to take action tomorrow. So, you just have to figure out how to get beyond that analysis paralysis and take action. Usually, that comes down to goal setting. So if you can set yourself actionable, measurable, time-bound goals, and then hold yourself accountable to those, that's a key.
Welcome to the Boise REIN Show, your destination for creating wealth through connections in real estate and business. Are you looking to become a real estate professional? Do you want to start your own successful real estate business? Well, I'm your host, Matt Osojnicki. Join us as we learn from the brightest minds, industry leaders, and experienced professionals, equipping you with the knowledge and confidence needed to make informed decisions and thrive in the ever-changing real estate landscape. Your journey starts now.
Welcome back to the Boise REIN Show. I'm your host, Matt Osojnicki, and on today's show, we have Dan Bennetts. I can't think of a more perfect person who has tried, and failed again, just to do the thing that he loves most. And his story has really humbled me on why it's so important to be passionate and to do what you love. He comes from a family investing in real estate. He's been a professional ski bum. He's owned his own single-family homes. He's been a biologist in the GIS space. And he's learned and failed a lot, and we're going to learn from those lessons today. So without further ado, Dan, can you bring the audience up to speed a little bit about where you come from and who you are?
Certainly, Matt. Yeah, thank you. And I'm honored to be here, by the way. So I'm Dan Bennetts. I grew up in a construction family. My father was a general contractor. He was flipping houses and I guess we'd call them burring. He did some buy and hold.
They didn't have that name back in the day, did they?
Yeah. This was clear back as far back as the 80s. Flipping homes, doing some buy and hold investing. Him and my mother ultimately accumulated like 40 plus doors. They were buying and selling constantly. We lost him a couple years ago, but he has left my mom in a very comfortable place in her retirement. So I'm forever grateful for that. And he was quite an inspiration. I worked for him for a couple summers during high school, but I was kind of a bratty kid. And the way I saw it, I was out in the hot sun, busting my butt, and he was paying me minimum wage. And so I turned 16 and realized I could get a job inside in a convenience store, and that's what I did. So there was really an opportunity to learn a lot from him, and I learned some things, but it was a little bit of an opportunity squandered at that time. I graduated from high school. I went off to college, didn't exactly know what it was that I wanted to do. I was undeclared during my first couple of years at college, which was at UC Davis in Northern California. But I had come from the mountains. I didn't like Davis. It was hot. It was flat. It was dry. It was a long way to the mountains. And I thought, man, I got to get out of here. So I packed up my stuff after 2 years in Davis. I moved to Colorado. And the thinking at that time was, I'm gonna be a ski bum for a year, take a year off, become a Colorado resident, and then go back to school, finish up my education. That 1 year off turned into several. Somehow I wound up as the general manager of a Domino's pizza store during that time. Was living the ski bum life, was loving it. Several years had come and gone, and people were starting to look at me sideways. Maybe it's about time you went back to school. So I did. I still didn't know what it was that I wanted to do, but I had decided that Colorado State was probably the place to go. Because they had the natural resources program, and that sounded appealing. So I got a hold of the Colorado State, course catalog. They sent it to me in the mail. It was, that thick, and I'm thumbing through the thing, trying to figure out what I want to major in. And fisheries biology. Fisheries biology. Well, that sounds like something that might have me outside a lot, and that sounded appealing. So that's how I became a fisheries biology major. Somewhere during obtaining that degree, looked around and thought, man, there's a lot of unemployed fisheries biologists. And GIS, which is essentially a computerized mapping. It's more complicated than that, but was just kind of coming onto the scene. It was a little kind of in its infancy at that time, and Colorado State was offering a minor in that. I thought, sounds interesting and potentially marketable. So I got a GIS minor. So I graduated with a fisheries biology major and a GIS minor, and sort of accidentally carved out myself a niche as an aquatic GIS guy.
So you finally found your niche. Like, this is what I'm going to do, right?
Yeah.
It's taking me this long.
That's what I thought at the
time.
Yeah. So I took a job in Southern Oregon, a federal job. I was working with the USGS as a biologist. And man, I loved it. It was everything that I dreamed of. When I chose that major, I was outside. I was living life on a boat. I was hands-on. I was getting dirty.
Yeah, you're living the dream. No need to worry about anything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at first it was everything that I envisioned. I was a biologist for 5 or 6 years, and during that span, I got promoted several different times. Every time I got promoted, the paycheck got bigger and the job satisfaction declined. And by the time I was done with that, I kind of found myself just sitting at a desk, pushing papers around, administering contracts, supervising, field biologists, and I hated it. I remember our IT guy came into my office one time. He said, "How come you have, with that masking tape over the corner of your computer screen?" I said, "Well, that's where the clock is. If I take that masking tape off, I just stare at the clock all day, and I can't do that." And so I knew I had to make a change. It was at that time, that was kind of the first time I thought, man, it would be cool to work for myself, cool to, do something where I'm kind of in charge and I'm calling all the shots. And I looked around, and the town that we were living in Southern Oregon, there were about 50,000 people there, and there was no Domino's Pizza. It seemed like an opportunity. So we actually franchised Domino's Pizza. At the same time, we took, I say we, my ex-wife and I, took our first foray into acquiring some small, like 2-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family rental homes. We had a few of those. And we purchased a 4-unit mobile home park as well. So we were accumulating some rental properties. I was self-managing those and trying to launch this Domino's Pizza, which we ultimately did. This was that store opened up in 2007.
What a perfect time to open a store like that,
right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but we had taken on an astronomical amount of debt to do that, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And we did ultimately purchase a second store. So we had 2 of them. And then, everybody knows what kind of happened in 2008, 2009. Our business slowed down. We weren't able to keep up with the debt load that we had, and we got wiped out like so many other folks around that time.
Yeah. So from there, it was trying to find yourself, and then, which ultimately led you to get back into it. Because I imagine there was a time frame where, you're a little skittish. Do I get back into the real estate market, or, what do I do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So after that, I spent a good deal of time kind of licking my wounds and trying to figure out what was next. And I worked a number of, jobs, nothing that I would consider a career, nothing that gave me a ton of satisfaction, but was just, kind of helping to pay the bills. I was a installation manager for satellite TV. I sold insurance, all kinds of different things. And, a number of years ago, I was fed up. Nothing was really going anywhere. I thought, I need to I enjoyed working for myself. That was behavior that my father modeled. He did well doing that. I need to do that again. I'm tired of punching a clock, answering to somebody else, working, asking to take time off. And so I decided to go about that with kind of the end in mind. That was the end. I wanted to work for myself and do things my own way. So how do I get there? Well, at this point, I know a lot about construction. I'm familiar with building techniques. Uh, you know, what about being a home inspector? That looks interesting. And part of the appeal was it's just a neat kind of combination, a neat integration of time on site, which is hands-on, crawling through crawl spaces, attics, across rooftops, getting dirty. And then I come back to the office and I'm able to put the brain to work, write up a report, synthesize the information that I'm collected, maybe think about, cause and effect, got this situation over here, what is likely to be the result of that 10 years down the road. And I put together a product and deliver it to my client. And then, there's quite a customer service aspect as well. So a lot of neat aspects to that business, and I thoroughly enjoy it. Been doing that for 5 years now.
And the synergy of being in real estate and just being in it full time, you get to see the ins and outs of all these homes. That's fantastic, which
Absolutely.
I'm sure led, you're probably doing a little bit of flipping now, which I want to get into. So let's back up the story a little bit now that we know a little bit more about Dan. I want to talk about what it was like being a young teenager and having a father who worked for himself, put in the work day in and day out, and was able to build like this portfolio that you knew nothing about.
Right.
You were there for 2 summers, and how did you know that this is like, I don't want to do this? What was going through your mind?
One of those summers that I worked for him, the project, I was on the same project all summer long, and it was a cool project. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was.
We never do.
I would love to have a project like this now. He had purchased basically an abandoned church, and we were turning that into a sixplex. And that was a property that they wound up owning for, I don't know, 15 or 20 years after that. And it, wound up being a cash cow for them. But really cool project. But, when I look back on that summer, what I remember is being out in the hot sun. And I'm sure there were, I was a general kind of construction grunt. But what stands out, the memory that I have is being out in the hot sun, like pulling nails out of 2x4s for hours at a time. So they like salvage 2x4s so they could be reused. And at the time that was like insane to me. Like, aren't these $2 at the lumber yard? What are we doing? And now, man, those, $2 2x4s that fast.
Right.
When you can pay a kid $4 an hour to pull nails out of those, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. There's a lot of lessons learned in doing something like that, but you didn't realize it at the time, I imagine.
I think he was, I think he had a plan, and he certainly envisioned, making me a more meaningful part of that operation. And there was going to be a time, I'm sure, where he was going to look to be teaching me some more meaningful things, but he wanted me to pay my dues, and I don't blame him one bit for that.
I say this all the time. You can't skip like from a level 1 investor to a level 8 investor like overnight. You have to do steps 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Right. I was done paying my dues, and I could make the same money, I wound up like throwing corn dogs in a deep fryer was my deal.
Sure.
At the convenience store. And that was easy.
It's hard to figure out what we want to do in life, and you're a good example of that from an early age and just moving on. Like, there are different phases to life, and this is your learning phase. Everybody goes through it. Everybody has it.
Absolutely.
So where's the best place to do that? On a mountain in Colorado?
That seemed like a good place.
A good place to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
I spent a number of years. I was living in the Aspen area, outside of Aspen, ski bumming around Aspen, and I would go skiing in the morning and come back and work like a closing shift at Domino's Pizza, and in the meantime, I'd be out behind the store, asleep on the hood of the car. that was kind of how I was living my life. It was a good, it was a lot of fun.
I love that because you're taking action into the unknown and you're learning lessons along the way. You've already seen your dad work properties. You know, looking back on it, you can see how important that was. And then you're getting a job at Domino's
Yeah.
while you're skiing, thinking you're having fun, but you're learning a lot of lessons along the way as you start to become the manager, you said, of that store.
Yeah, and I've worked a lot of different leadership type positions. Like I said, I was an installation manager for Dish Network. Just a lot of leadership type positions. But the best leadership training that I ever received was from Domino's Pizza. And I had, right when I started, I had a couple of really good mentors there. Some of the best bosses I've ever worked for in my life. The general manager in the store that I was hired on as a delivery driver. And the general manager in that store, as well as the supervisor that was overseeing several stores, great folks, great mentors to me at the time. Really took a lot of good inspiration from them as well.
Yeah, you never know where you're going to find your
Yeah.
mentors, and you can learn something from everybody. I'm
Absolutely.
a true believer in that. So then it's time to like, hey, I'm getting a little older now. I need to start taking life more seriously. Like the system and process tells me I need to go to college, and we all get that. And it's hard
Yeah.
to figure out what it is you want to do.
Yeah.
But the college years and getting into debt to get a career field is just like, anything in real estate or flipping. You got to take on debt to
Certainly.
fix the project up to hopefully have a good outcome in the end, just like
Certainly.
school. And it sounds like you found a really good career.
I did. Yeah. It was something that I thoroughly enjoyed early on.
Yes.
As we mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned that it just wasn't for you, but it's so hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me to leave a perfectly good job that I knew I was going to spend 20 to 40 years working at.
Right.
Why would you ever be so crazy and to leave something so safe to risk it all? And for you, it was a comfortability thing at first, right?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did that transition look between leaving that W-2 and then ultimately purchasing a franchise in a Domino business?
It was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a scary thing. I would say that it was almost a foregone deal though. I just could not keep going to the job that I was at. I was just miserable. And I knew that there had to be a change. And while it was terrifying making that change, a change had to be made. I was miserable where I was. And so, it was scary to make the change, but it almost seemed like, there was like no alternative. I got to do something else. And
Domino's was where it's at. You have
Yeah.
experience in it. You've done it before.
it was something I knew.
Something you knew.
Yeah.
So how do you go about purchasing a franchise? How did that work out?
There was quite it's an involved process. There's, different franchises work differently. There are some franchises where you can walk in off the street and really they're just going to be looking at your net worth. Can you afford to purchase this thing? And then they're going to put you through their program, which may be, just a couple days. And they don't necessarily expect you to be an owner operator. You're just somebody that's, writing the check and financial backing essentially. Domino's, at least at the time, Domino's Pizza did not work like that at all. They wanted owner operators, and they wanted folks that had Domino's Pizza experience, management experience. And so I had that. There was still an application process, and then I shipped off for several weeks at a time to Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is where they are headquartered, and went through like Pizza University, that kind of thing. Learning, business courses, that sort of thing. How to put a P&L together.
Oh, so you gotta,
Yeah.
this is great because you dove in head first into an entrepreneurial course
Yes.
on how to run
Yeah,
business.
absolutely.
And they had a system already set up. That sounds like a great way to get started owning your own business.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of tools, a lot of support. Good program. Absolutely.
Would you recommend something like that to somebody starting off that wants to do their own business and doesn't know what to do? Would you recommend a franchise?
Yes, but I would recommend going about it differently than we did. Unless you're in a financially secure position, um, what we did was we built out from a shell. It was a newly constructed retail space, and we built that out from just the shell into this Domino's Pizza. So we had it was very costly. Um, there are significantly more economical ways to go about that.
Now you're running the store, it's going great. You're opening a second one. You're starting to buy some single family homes.
Right.
Uh, was this always the plan? Did you get a little inkling back from your dad? Like, hey, he did this, maybe now that we're doing well, we need to start doing that too.
I think so. Yeah.
Because Bigger Pockets wasn't around at that time, or any like YouTube or.
Yeah. And my dad might have said something to me, maybe you start, start buying up some rental properties. But yeah, looking at, he was obviously running a very successful operation at that time and, had provided very well for us and looking at that model, yeah, I think I looked at that and said, I probably need to get on that bus too.
This show would not be possible without the support from our local community. Because of you, we're able to share information from leading professionals like never before. That's why our sponsors at Boise Turnkey Investments and Your Stay B&B have teamed up with the Boise REIN Show. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, they help bring you all the insider information to get you started on your journey today. Back to the show.
You wanted to do single family homes. Were you getting into like long-term rental, single family homes? There was no apartment complexes, multi-units, any.
So I had a small handful of single family, the long-term rentals.
Okay.
These, I think they were all 2-bedroom, 1-bath. Maybe there was a 3-bedroom in there. And then we purchased a 4-unit mobile home park also. And I think I just purchased that thing because, it was cheap and looked like it was going to cash flow.
Yeah.
And so that's how we wound up with that.
Everything's looking good. You're doing it all. You've got a
Yeah.
franchise. You're opening a couple stores. You're doing some single family. Let's venture into the mobile home park industry. What made you so excited or fascinated about getting into the mobile home parks? Or was it just an opportunity that just fell in your lap?
I think it was just an opportunity. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you able to do anything with it?
I performed some repairs here and there. It was management intensive. I was self-managing all of these units at the time. The mobile home park in particular was management intensive. It was, I guess you'd say like C or D class. It was dump.
Yeah. But you're learning. That's the point.
Learned
right?
a lot. And I think, one of the things that I've learned right now, we don't have, this is in the future. We are going to be looking to invest again in long-term rentals, but I would not self-manage again. And that was a good lesson that kind of came from that.
Well, you paid your dues.
Yeah.
You self-managed
Absolutely.
Domino stores. You self-managed long-term rentals and the mobile home parks, of course.
Right.
So things are looking great. But then, as we all know, something bad happened.
Yeah,
for everyone.
We actually opened that Domino's Pizza in 2007, and that was when we had incurred, the hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Well, everybody knows what happened 2008, 2009. Our sales were tailing off some, and we just couldn't keep up with the debt load that we had taken on, and got cleaned out.
Can you talk us through a little bit about how that looks? Because I'm imagining you've got this franchise, you have a business, there's structure in place on how to succeed. Where does it start to fail?
Like I said, and Domino's, we had an accounting firm that worked with a number of Domino's Pizza franchisees. They were kind of specific. That's what they did. And, they were looking at my books going, man, do you have a plan? Like, what are you gonna, things aren't looking too good. We've seen this before. And the second store that we took on uh, was a kind of a distressed store, and it was several hours away, about 2 or 3 hours away. But we were able to purchase that at a fire sale price, like $10,000 or $12,000, if I remember right. And it was kind of a dump. It needed some renovation. So I actually did some of that, just interior painting, kind of sprucing up. And we put a little bit of money into renovating that thing. But, the writing was kind of already on the wall. We were already, the reserve funds were kind of being depleted slowly. And I think I was hoping that this other store, we could get it running, properly, and it might prop up the other one. Of course, that was a bad idea.
Gotcha. Well,
And
the best way to learn is by doing it yourself.
yeah,
So is this like an income problem, a sales problem? Because the stock market crashed, the real estate market crashed. People weren't able to afford, this high inflated market that we were in.
yeah, I think it was a sales
It
problem.
was a sales problem.
If we'd had adequate sales, we might have, income fixes everything, right?
Right. So let's open up another Domino
yeah.
store and we'll just make a little more income.
Right.
Yeah. So this happens. You lose the stores. Did you lose the homes too? Did you have to sell those off as well?
Yeah.
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 That's probably worst case scenario for you and a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Totally.
You seem to be okay today. How do you get the
Boy,
resiliency to bounce back from that?
There was a long period there of soul searching and, man, what's next? And, I worked during that period, I worked a number of jobs that were just jobs, nothing I would consider a career. Just things to help provide and put some money on the table.
So this inspection company you started, it's Pinnacle
Home Inspection.
Pinnacle Home Inspections.
Yes.
And you've been around for 5 years now?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. And still going strong.
Yeah. I'm at the very peak. There was one week where I did 11 inspections. Things have slowed down a lot. I'm averaging something like 2 inspections a week now, and that is A-okay. With the other things that we have going, that's fine. As we mentioned, I know what to do to make that inspection business busy if I want more business.
Yeah.
And those are buttons we're not pushing right now.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about home inspections
Mhm.
because I've never had an opportunity to speak with somebody who's as knowledgeable as you are on it. So I got a few questions for you about home inspections.
Sure.
So first, what even is a home inspection?
Okay. Well, these are typically, not always, but typically associated with a real estate transaction. And most often I'm hired by the buyer. It's not always the case, but most often I'm hired by the buyer. I'm going to go in, typically spend somewhere in the ballpark of 3 hours on site, and I'm going to go through that house with a fine-tooth comb. I'm going to go through the crawl space, the interior, the attic, up on the roof if it's safe to do so. If it's not, we'll get a drone up there, unless there's snow cover. I'm going to look at all your major mechanical systems, your plumbing, your electrical, your heating and cooling. And then I'm going to generate a report telling you, what it is that I found. Sometimes those things are minor issues. You got some loose door hinges over here. And sometimes they're quite serious. Even on a new build, I've inspected new builds where, the connection was never made from the home waste line to the city sewer.
What?
And, I was running the dishwasher. Thankfully wasn't doing anything else in there. I was running the dishwasher and I went down in the crawl space and it was all draining out under the house. So, as a home buyer, especially, property that you're going to own or occupy, you may be someone that doesn't necessarily have a lot of, knowledge or skills, in terms of rehabbing or putting something back together. that's certainly something you're going to want to know about before you
Yes.
sign on that thing. Yeah.
Before you make
So,
a huge purchase. So I guess my next question would be, why would you get a home inspection? And it sounds like this might be one good reason.
yeah, yeah. There are always things. I can inspect the home that I live in and generate a report that's got 30 items in it. So there is no such thing as a perfect home. And the home doesn't have to be perfect. It's not expected to be perfect. It's not a pass fail. But I'm going to tell you what I see, and those things might be minor. They might not be. Boy, I was on the phone this morning before I came here with a builder following up with me on a home inspection that I did last week. And, again, it happens to be another plumbing issue. New construction, a lot of those waste lines were running uphill. And I don't typically go into the crawl space with a level, but it was egregious, visibly. I thought, man, I better go get the level. And I did. And some of these waste lines are running uphill, an inch over 10 feet. So, man, that's going to cause some blockage problems. Somebody's going to want to know that, and they're going to want the builder to correct it before they move in.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
or the seller to correct it
Yeah.
if it's a previously occupied home.
So this is kind of like gotten your feet a little warm to get back into the investment side now too, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah. That was probably something that kind of whetted that appetite a little bit. Being in homes every day, kind of becoming part of the real estate market locally. Again, looking around going, man, people are making money and I may be missing a boat here.
It's got to be hard though. I have talked to people who said, you know what, I'm never going to get in real estate again after what happened in '08.
Yeah.
They can't get over that and they move on.
And I was gun shy. I was, I made a decision that I wanted to get back involved in the market, maybe get involved in flipping again, but I was gun shy. I had been burned before, and so I actually signed up for some mentorship. Wrote a great big check. Had a mentor. Went to some seminars, and boy, that was worth every single penny. And I'm glad that I did that. I know people kind of deride having a guru, which is what we had.
I gotta cut you off there for a second because this is such a good point. You went to college to become a biologist in the GIS sector.
Yeah.
You paid money to do that.
Absolutely.
In return, you got a job that gave you income.
Right.
You now fast forward, over a decade later, you're paying somebody, to take you to school on how to flip homes.
Yeah, I'm a believer. It sounds like we both are. I'm a
Yes.
believer in investing in yourself, investing in
100%.
education.
Yeah.
And that knowledge, being armed with that knowledge and being surrounded by a group of people that were doing it or learning to do it, gave me the confidence to take action, which was, if nothing else, paying for the confidence to take action was well worthwhile and has been repaid to me, numerous times already.
I want to point out something else is that you haven't purchased a home yet. You've got into the real estate space, you started working in it, you started taking action, okay, but you haven't made your first investment yet.
Yeah.
And you decided that it's important to invest, into me first. Whether you had a lot of money at the time or not, you knew that whatever you had, you needed to scrape up to invest in you first.
Yes.
So that you could
Right.
learn what was most important to move forward.
Correct.
And I imagine you probably didn't want to make another Domino's mistake either.
Boy, you got that.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you learn? And I know you just said that it was well worth your investment. What did you learn and how did that move you forward?
So I think one of the kind of key things that we got out of that, because I was looking to get into flipping, and we gained some tools to be able to walk a home. Of course, being a home inspector plays into this as well. There's a great synergy there, but I was provided with some tools, to be able to walk a home, put together a repair estimate, and then you watch HGTV, and it's our purchase price was $250,000. We put $50,000 into the home, sold it for $400,000, so we made $100,000. That's not how it works. I got a lot of tools to be better equipped to manage or project carrying cost, various transactional costs. Really, be able to put a better finger on, here's my purchase price, here's my projected ARV. These are going to be the costs in between, and here's what I'm going to make.
Hi, I'm Jonna Weber, the founder of the Boise Real Estate Investor Network. Thanks for being a listener of our Boise REIN Show, where our incredible pro members share their personal stories and areas of expertise with our listeners. If you're enjoying our show, you are going to love our Boise REIN community. Our mission is to inspire, connect, and equip you to create wealth and freedom for yourself and your family. We invite you to join us as a member at Boise REIN today at boiserein.com.
Well, Dan, that's going to be it for us today. I really appreciate you being on the show. It's been phenomenal. It's been eye-opening. I've certainly learned a lot. For our listeners out there, what's one actionable item, in your opinion, that they could take today that would get them closer to their goals tomorrow?
Yeah. So to me, the analysis paralysis, I tend to fall victim to that. And I know a lot of people do. We all know those folks that have been, listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast for 3 years or going to all the meetups, and they're going to take action tomorrow. They're always going to take action tomorrow. So, you just have to figure out how to get beyond that analysis paralysis and take action. Usually, that comes down to goal setting. So if you can set yourself actionable, measurable, time-bound goals, and then hold yourself accountable to those, that's a key. So your goal might be, I'm going to, I will have closed on my first investment property by, 4 months from today. Or my goal for next month is to make 10 offers. Or in 2024, I'm going to complete 3 rehabs, start to finish. But time bound and measurable. And if you didn't make it, you need to look back and do a deep dive. Why didn't you make it? What can I change going forward? So
Yeah, I love that. A good place to get started, where I got started with the goals, is The One Thing.
Yes.
It's a book. They've got a lot of free resources and tools to help get you started to set those goals if you don't know what setting goals looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. Well, Dan, thanks for coming on. And for those of you out there who want to reach out to Dan, or if you have any questions, we've got all of his information in the show notes. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to talk to you guys, meet with you guys, and see what you guys could do together.
Certainly.
Yeah. Dan,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for coming on, and it's been a pleasure having you.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
See ya.